The High Throughput Laboratory is located in Vancouver, Washington, in the already existing WSP Vancouver Crime Lab.
The construction portion of the project is finished. We have the space completely built, we have the offices completely occupied, and the major equipment, chemicals, glassware are all in place.
We will have 11 full-time DNA analysts working sexual assault kits.
The entire training process can take anywhere from 6 months to 18 months, depending on the experience the scientist brings into the laboratory.
The current backlog of sexual assault kits in the state of Washington is 3,600 kits. And then additionally, we have 211 or so additional kits coming in monthly.
I was touring evidence rooms and we were looking how to store DNA, and I saw these white boxes on the shelf and I said, what are these boxes? And they're like, they're untested kits. And I knew that each of those kits was a survivor's voice who was never heard, who never had the opportunity to seek justice.
Sexual assault kits are normally processed essentially by pulling the evidence from the vault once it's received. Then they open and inventory the contents, decide which samples to process from a swab or a cutting of cloth, and that goes into the test tubes, and they manually add the chemicals, they manually do the vortex mixing, they extract the DNA from the sample, they carry out their quantitation, and then they work to create essentially the DNA profile.
And so that leads to a lot of time in the lab being spent physically handling the samples.
The difference between that and a high throughput laboratory is that a lot of those major steps in terms of processing each piece of evidence are done with robotics. Once you've essentially put what you need in the test tube, all the extractions, all the concentrations, and all the manipulations are done by the machine for you.
The sample is placed in a specialized tube for our instrumentation, which allows the analyst to put the samples on that instrument, let it run that program.
The idea is if you're not working with it by hand on the bench and the robot's doing it for you, you can be doing something else with that time. That decreases the amount of time per sample that it takes to get the results you need.
WSP invested in what's called a robotic workstation, and this robot was really the only robot we could find that could fully automate the DNA process in the lab from start to finish. We chose this robot because it has the ability to open and close tubes, as well as having an onboard centrifuge. And those were two of the most critical steps that we actually still needed an analyst to do. I know it sounds really simple, but in order to finish the process, we have to be able to open and close the tubes. And until now, WSP didn't have a robot that was capable of doing that process. Without these robotic improvements, we would not be able to fully automate the DNA process like we're working on right now. We'll be able to process 165 sexual assault kits a month, which works out to about 1,980 kits per year. The non-high throughput labs are only able to process about 117 of those per month, so there is a shortfall there. But with the additional 165 that the high throughput will be able to add to that, we should be able to well meet all of the sexual assault kits that are coming in.
The goal of the DNA program is to provide closure for victims. We want to get at the truth. We want to know what happened that night or that day to someone. We want to have the samples processed efficiently and quickly so that those answers can be obtained.
I'm excited to get this project off the ground and running and becoming as efficient as we possibly can.
It's the heart of the DNA program's reaching its goal. All of its processes have been looked at from start to finish to deliberately optimize the speed that we can work at to get those answers for the victims.
It was an opportunity to be a part of something historic for our state and for our agency, and it takes a lot of patience to build something from the ground up, but being a part of that and being able to bring that and learn that is an opportunity for myself to serve my community and the people that helped me get to where I am.
We expect with the additional capacity from the high throughput lab that we will no longer have a backlog in Washington state, and our backlog will not return.
I have 3 daughters. I would never ever want them to go through anything like some victims have, and I've heard a number of victim stories over the years, and some of them are just downright terrifying. But if it did happen to them, I want them to get the truth. I want them to get closure. I want an answer for them. I get into the business of forensic science because I'm interested in the truth, and our high throughput laboratory is going to find the truth for the victims as quickly as possible.